In this webinar, we are going to focus on creating inclusive campaigns that give and ensure we're taking a responsible approach to our marketing. So what is an inclusive campaign? Well, it's something that actually enables us to build true and authentic relationships with a diverse range of audiences. And by doing that, what we're doing is creating brand trust, long-term growth, and a real kind of honest and authentic approach to our marketing and communications. Now, obviously, campaigns are little snapshots, little sound bites of our broader brand positioning. They tend to be those moments in time where, as organizations, whether we're commercial or not for profit, where we are actually kind of highlighting some of the best bits of what we do. But doing that inclusively, doing that with a nod to diversity, and doing this in an authentic and transparent manner is the way to do campaigns effectively. So what we're going to look at in this particular conversation is to address some of the real challenges here that we are seeing where this isn't the case. 71% of consumers expect brands to promote diversity and inclusion in their marketing. That is a huge figure. This isn't something that is a byproduct of just doing good marketing. This is at the core of our marketing thinking. 64% of people took action after seeing an inclusive or diverse ad. And that's Google saying that. So two-thirds of people will actually take action after they see something which they perceive as being both relevant and appropriate to them as an audience. So the concept of inclusivity is about authenticity, it's about relevance, and it's about accessibility. When you exclude somebody, it stands to reason that you lose their trust, but when you include them, you gain their loyalty. So inclusive campaigns are a surefire way of building both customer lifetime value, but also this kind of honest, integral brand that we are, I guess, all seeking in our marketing and communications. So let's define it. Let's get into the detail of actually what we need to cover when we're thinking about building inclusive marketing and inclusive campaigns. Well, inclusive marketing considers all dimensions of human identity. Okay, so this isn't just about you. This isn't just about me. This isn't just about that person there. It's about everyone. So what we need to consider are the dimensions of age, race, gender, religion, ability, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, language, and more. So there are many, many different facets of inclusivity. And what we're basically saying is that we need to be sympathetic, we need to be appropriate, we need to consider everyone, irrespective of how they do or don't tick the boxes on that checklist if we were to create one. So it's about ensuring that no one is invisible and that no one is misrepresented. We're going to get into some of the details about how you do this because it's a sensitive matter. It is a very important consideration to be factoring into your marketing planning and your marketing tactics. Based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I'm sure you've heard of that or come across it. Inclusive marketing operates at the esteem and belonging levels. It ensures that audiences will feel seen, they'll feel valued, and they'll feel respected. So when we think about marketing, a lot of us think about the analytics, we think about AI, we think about all these emerging technologies. But this topic of inclusivity is all about the human within our marketing, the human within our marketing relationships and the campaigns and the conversations that we foster. So this is a very human-centric way of thinking about marketing. Now, as you would expect in something that is sensitive, that is really vital to get right, there are many, many frameworks and models and theories. One that I particularly like, which is a great checklist for ensuring that we don't miss a trick here in this sensitive topic, is something called the spectrum framework. And this is a really good one for inclusive campaigns. This is a really good one that enables you to make sure that you are absolutely on point with your thinking as you start to plan out how you're going to do this. So it's an anagram. So Spectrum stands for strategy, aligning inclusion with your business values. We'll talk a little bit about kind of taking it too far a little bit later. But for now, we're just saying, okay, we've got to align inclusion with the values that we have as a business. And hopefully, culturally and strategically, those are appropriate to the audiences that you're looking to serve. P is for personas. We need to represent diverse customer realities. So this implies and actually reminds us that it's not about viewing things through our own lenses. As marketers, as communicators, content creators, campaign managers, it's our responsibility to reflect the voice of the customer, the perception of the customer back into our organization. So if we can represent diverse customer realities, in other words, their perceptions, all the personas that we serve will see our campaigns and our marketing as relevant to them. E is for empathy. We need to center lived experiences through our campaigns. In other words, not pushing things too far, not going too left field or right field, but actually staying within the tracks that we set for ourselves and actually doing it in a way that is empathic to the actual behaviors, the actual needs, desires, challenges, wishes of our target audiences and stay centered within those. So these are lived experiences brought to life through real world experience that we have with our customer relationships. C is for content, the language, visuals, and narratives, the storytelling, the evidence, if you like, that we're bringing to bear within our campaigns and within our marketing need to be relevant for diverse audiences. T is for testing. Check for bias and impact. We've got the power now of AI, which can help us to do this on an ongoing basis. We don't want to be seen to be, because we don't want to be acting as a biased brand. We need to be seeing that, okay, we're human and okay, we will make mistakes, but we're doing our best endeavors to minimize the impact of not, being perfect. So checking for bias and impact is absolutely key. So continual testing is vital as we develop our inclusive campaigns. R is for representation, behind and in front of the camera. We see this, and we'll go into this in more detail with a lot of advertising, for example, where certain brands don't represent the audiences that they serve. It doesn't mean you have to serve absolutely everybody. If you're not targeting absolutely everybody, then you need to be appropriate to the communities, to the environments, to the demographics, to the audiences that you serve, both behind and in front of the camera. We'll go deeper into that in a little while. U is for universal design, accessibility and inclusion, not blocking out and making inaccessible to certain audiences and certain people who maybe have very specific or very special needs that we need to be serving, not making our projects, not making our campaigns, not making our products or services inaccessible to them. So being really considerate to the nth degree for all of our target audiences. And M in Spectrum Framework is for measurement, tracking the sentiment and outcomes of everything we do. If you've listened to any of my previous webinars, you will know that I'm all about measurement. I'm all about return on investment, ROI, making sure that we know the value that we brought to bear. Well, this is where it becomes really sensitive because we need to be tracking the subjective sentiment. In other words, how does our marketing make our target audience feel? And particularly if we're looking at very diverse audiences, are we attending to their needs and how are they feeling? And what are the outcomes from the kind of marketing that we're doing? How is this actually impacting on their real world experiences and lives? It's crucial we know. So M in the Spectrum Framework for Inclusive Campaigns is about ongoing measurement. So there's a nice little checklist for you to get you started. There's quite a lot to consider here, quite a lot to work through. But there are some fundamental theories and ways to approach this that I'd like you to be thinking around. So the first one is the mirror and window theory. The mirror theory. Audiences see themselves reflected in the work that you do. If they do, you're doing a good job. If they don't, you become irrelevant and obsolete, and almost to the point, if you get it really badly wrong, offensive to them. So we need to make sure that our target audiences see themselves reflected in our marketing and communications. And the window, as part of the mirror and window theory, is that audiences learn about others' experiences. So we can actually use carefully targeted, inclusive campaigns and inclusive marketing to educate and inform not only our journey, but help people to combine and act more as a joined up community. So we can actually integrate different personas in the outcomes that they will receive as a result of experiencing our products and our services and our marketing. So great campaigns balance both to encourage empathy and inclusivity. It's a really, really interesting approach, this one, because yes, it is about you and it is about the actions that you're going to take, but it's also about how those actions land, how those behaviors, how those choices that you make land in the eyes of your audiences. It could be audiences that you're targeting specifically with your products and sales, but it could be those on the periphery. How are they picking up the messaging that you're doing? Because get it right and everyone will be on board. Get it wrong and the backlash can be significant. So basically what we're saying is here, you need to be paying attention. I call this true mindful marketing. You've got to have an open mind. You've got to be willing to take action, but you've got to be ready to adapt as well. Now, this is something which should proliferate right across your organization. There is a big, big, substantial business case for inclusivity. Brands with the highest diversity scores see the best uptake and the best results for the right reasons. According to Deloitte, brands that embrace inclusivity and diversity will see an 83% higher consumer preference score. So people will migrate towards them. Now, what is not good about that in terms of your commercial activities and your commercial growth, as well as doing the right thing for the communities that you're serving? There's a win-win-win here. The customers win, you win, and your business wins. McKinsey says that you will see a 23% uplift in revenue growth as a result of getting diversity scores up. The highest diversity scores see up to 23% higher revenue growth. So inclusivity is profitable, genuinely profitable. It's a good thing to do commercially as well as morally because it widens reach and it builds this brand trust that I've been talking about before. So you can kind of think about diversity as being invited to the party and inclusion being invited to dance. I love that quote from Vernon Myers. Diversity is being invited to the party. In other words, people are aware and it's appropriate. Inclusion is being asked to dance. In other words, being asked to take part, being asked to collaborate and cooperate, looking forward. So there's a really great commercial as well as moral value that comes to play if we take this stuff seriously. So what we need to do here to actually start to take action is to move beyond stereotypes and invest in authentic audience understanding. We need to partnership with researchers, community leaders, those who are the influencers and thought leaders in the audiences or the communities that we're looking to serve. Traditional persona marketing, segmentation in the old school way of doing things often generalizes. And you could argue, well, that's not a bad thing if we're still doing this with good intentions, but it does have a tendency to exclude marginalized voices. And so what we can do here to reflect real world complexity, because the real world is complex, is build multi-dimensional personas. There are many, many tools. One such tool is the intersectionality mapping tool, which you can use to identify overlapping social identities, where not everybody fits perfectly into a particular definition, and some people are quite fluid. We see a lot of fluidity in how people identify in terms of their gender identity, for example. There's fluidity in how they behave and act as they go through their lifetime. So we're seeing a lot of people here adapt and change as they go through a journey. And so we need to be fluid, we need to be adaptable, and we need to adapt to that change in the way that we market. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, but one of the key things here is to make sure that we are listening. I mean, truly listening, actively listening to the audiences that we wish to serve. And this is not about high level, kind of throw it away type of research, just a little bit of desk research, or, yeah, we listened once, but now we kind of think we know what we're doing. It's consistent, ongoing, active listening. That is how you become embracing of inclusivity. It's really, really important. And this will enable you to adapt and to become flexible in your language and tone. Yes, you will have a brand voice. Yes, I know you've probably got brand guidelines, AI guidelines. You will have a culture and a certain style in which you operate and act, and a culture within the business that does need to be reflected. But do be careful. Inclusive brands watch for bias, they watch for jargon, they watch for stereotyping, which can be very, very detrimental if you get it wrong. So you need to be using language that's empowering, that's respectful, and that's also accessible. And Microsoft's inclusive design toolkit suggests at its core using a people first language. So things like saying a person with disability rather than a disabled person is a very simple way of just bringing that to life. Those little nuances of language can be both really impactful and positive, as well as really detracting and very, very negative in your brand building. Get it right, you accelerate. Get it wrong, you go backwards. So doing your research, doing your homework, watching for bias, jargon, and stereotypes is a surefire way of taking some confident first steps in here. And also when it comes to visual storytelling, a lot of us are using imagery, we're using video, so we're going beyond just the written word there in terms of style and tone of voice. What we need to be careful here is visual storytelling without stereotypes. We do not want to be doing what's called tokenism. In other words, that image of somebody who just kind of we're paying lip service to in our messaging, but then we're actually ignoring as we go deeper into the story. We want to make sure that we avoid cliches. The diverse stock photo, for example, that one where you have, for example, a multi-generational family image where you have, a whole different range of people, literally in a stereotypical way represented in a family image. We've all seen it. We've all seen it in social media. We've all seen it in adverts on the television. So we need to be showing real people, real stories, and real contexts. Avoid that one where you say, give me in AI, if you're using AI to create some imagery for you, give me a very diverse family group and create an image for me for that. And you'll see this really stereotypical family setup. But if you're using real people, real families, real stories, that you can say, no, look, here's a real case study of an actual family. They're using our products and services. And we can then be confident that we're diverse casting, we're using authentic settings, and we're avoiding visual or video cliches that really, really allow us to be challenged in the work that we're doing. So what we're saying is that real world wins, case studies win, testimonials, recommendations from diverse groups wins. This is what we're after here. This is bringing the reality of the customer's world and bringing you into their world too. So it's kind of embedding you into their community. That's fundamentally what we're doing here, not at a lip service level, but actually saying, no, we are fully committed to this. We're embedded in this community. And look, here are the examples to demonstrate why. As I've talked about here, case studies and examples, measurement, ROI, all of this comes to bear if we start using reality. And there are many, many examples where, this has gone well and has gone poorly. Maltesers celebrating difference. If you want to research that one, that was a really interesting one. They did Look on the Light Side, featuring people with disabilities in humorous, everyday contexts. This was co-created with disability consultants and tested with inclusive panels. They did their homework, and their brand favorability score rose by 8%. As well as winning multiple inclusivity awards. So it takes energy, it takes time, but by doing it right and maybe even emulating these kinds of brands, doing it correctly could be a way that you can move your game forward too. Another great example was Starbucks' name campaign, which highlighted transgender individuals using their chosen names on cups. We know that when we go into, Starbucks and other brands are available, but we know when we go in there, they say, oh, what's your name? What name can we put on the cup? And this was highlighting transgender individuals doing this. It won Channel 4's Diversity in Advertising Award. It was using real customer stories, not scripts. So these were small moments of inclusion being deeply powerful when rooted in lived experience. This is what I'm talking about, using real life, real world case study experiences that in theory cannot be challenged because they actually happened. So rather than the cliche made up, oh, we want to look good to this audience, get in with that audience, start working with that audience, and things can go really well. Procter & Gamble's The Talk and The Look campaigns explored how Black families navigate racism and bias. They created space for difficult but vital conversations through their storytelling. And so the insight from that really was, if you can and if you've confidence to do this, don't shy away from real issues. Audiences value brands who take responsibility, the brands who commit, and the brands who really involve themselves, go deep into the communities that they're looking to serve and actually take this stuff seriously. And it can really, really work. So it's exciting stuff if you get it right. And what we're talking about here is really relationship building. Yes, you've got to build the relationships with the thought leaders, the influencers, the community leaders in the target audiences you're wishing to serve, and really do this. Really get them on board. This is co-creation. Love that phrase. It's more than just collaboration, it's co-creation. You're working with these people, these human beings, to bring real life stories to life. And that will put your brand at the center, and really, really at the center of those kind of conversations. And so how can we do this? Well, have you involved community voices? There's a bit of a checklist here. Inclusive campaign checklist begins with, have you involved community voices? Decide who your communities are that you're going to be targeting, wishing to get into. Do your research. Who are you already involved with? Maybe even embedded with? Could you do more? Could you do it better? Do your visuals reflect real diversity? And it's not just your view on this, it's their view. Remember, it's their perception that's really key. Is the language that you're using inclusive and bias free? We've kind of seen these two words pop up a number of times. Get it tested. Go and ask. Don't make judgments and don't assume. Never assume. To do an inclusive campaign, you have to ask. Has your content been tested with underrepresented audiences? That is important. This is not about going out and doing mass questioning, mass research, and mass focus groups. This is getting to the people who maybe potentially are the most sensitive in the communities that you're looking to serve. And is it accessible to everyone? Are there captions, alt text, subtitles, whatever you need to do to ensure that this is accessible to everyone? Because you do genuinely want everyone. In the world of hyper-personalization that we're moving into, this is a great route in the most authentic, the most appropriate, and the most sound way. This is building true inclusion. Accessibility is inclusion. 1.3 billion people live with a or some form of disability, according to the World Health Organization. So all of your campaign work, all of your visuals should be serving people who maybe have accessibility issues for visual, hearing, cognitive, or some physical accessibility challenge. So there are many, many tools that you can use to test your assets. Wave, VoiceOver, Microsoft Accessibility Insights, for example. So you can test your concepts with people of different ages, backgrounds, and abilities and ask them, what could we do better? Not just what do you like? What will you buy more of? The old style of marketing is so outdated and so inappropriate. So we should be using now inclusive feedback loops through our campaign development. This is the game changer. This is the one that goes way beyond just using AI, way beyond just doing what we've always done. This is the one that is going to change everything you do for the better. So get on board, start to really take this stuff seriously. Inclusion isn't a campaign itself, it's a commitment. So do watch out as you start to do this. There may be a temptation and an increasing temptation to jump on awareness days without action. How many brands have you encountered, have you seen in social media, or maybe you work with, or maybe you're in a brand that jumps on awareness days? Oh, it's the day for such and such. This is the World Something Day. And oh, yes, we're committed to this, or maybe only just for this day. That is not what we are talking about. Do not jump on awareness days without action. This is about jumping onto the things that you can sustain. This is sustainable marketing. It's inclusive, it's accessible, but it's also sustainable, and that's important. So one-off diverse ads in speech marks there with no systemic change are a surefire way of getting things wrong. There's a very, very infamous example of Pepsi's Kendall Jenner protest ad, which was well-intentioned probably by the brand marketers, but was tone deaf and really damaged the brand in the short term. They will come back from it. Big brands do generally, but you do not want that negative press, that inappropriate positioning of your brand if you get it wrong. So don't just jump on the latest fads and trends and hashtags. Make sure you can do stuff that you can take action for, and you can actually see systemic change within your business for the better to support it. Remember, we're talking here about evidence. Talked about case studies. You've got to back this up internally as well. And so by doing this and doing this properly, you're going to be building an inclusive marketing culture. Sounds good, doesn't it? Reflecting internal culture with inclusion. It starts with inside the business. So involve any teams that you might have involving, if you have these kinds of teams, HR, DEI, employee resource groups, in the content development that you do. This is not just a marketing responsibility. If you're not an inclusive team, you can't be inclusive in your marketing. It's a well-known quote, and you've probably heard this one before, but it's so, so key. As a group and as a culture, all of you need to be inclusive. You can't have gaps. You can't have people who are saying, oh, yeah, but I don't really believe in that stuff. Oh, yeah, that's just for this year. If you're going to do this, everyone needs to be on board. Because let's face it, even if you don't have marketing in your title, you are still marketing for your organization, because we're all marketers. We're all custodians of our brands. And this will improve your brand integrity and accountability. Inclusive marketing is open to scrutiny, but that is a good thing. I think the more we talk about this, the more I kind of hear myself saying these words, it is the right thing to do. It is the new way of trading in marketing. It's a new currency in communications, and it's here for the right reasons. So create mechanisms for feedback, for correction and apology when you need them. If you've got a press team, they need to be on board with this. They probably already are, but they need to be on board with any kind of inclusive campaigns so that they can be ready. If you don't get it exactly right first time, it's really, really important that everybody knows what's happening, they know why it's happening, and they buy into it too. But how are you going to measure that? that progress, that development, well, it's going to be partly from inside, as we're talking about, but it's also going to be from the outside too. And typically, traditional metrics that for a lot of us in marketing we've grown up with, those click-through rates, those impressions, those vanity metrics in digital, they don't typically tell the whole story. So we need to be adding some new ones in if we want to be inclusive. So audience sentiment tracking. How is our audience feeling? What kind of emotional responses are we getting? As well as some of those more traditional objective measures. Is our representation audit score going in a positive direction? Are we accessibility compliant? What kind of KPIs have we got in there for that? And can we measure and monitor those over time? Remember, a KPI isn't an objective, it's an indicator of how we're progressing towards our objectives. And of course, engagement from underrepresented communities can be another great KPI. So, as we're working with these influencers, thought leaders, and community leaders, engagement from underrepresented communities can be a great KPI to show that actually we are committed to and we're working towards those claims that we've been making. So that's a good feeling. That's a great thing. So these KPIs, you need to be thinking some of these softer but absolutely crucial indicators of the progress we're taking. And then our inclusive campaign ROI can be the best it can possibly be. Or if you're in Gillette's case, the best a men can be. That campaign, despite controversy, led to a 110% increase in social mentions and higher purchase intent among younger audiences. Yes, it was an inclusive campaign that was polarizing in the short term, but was powerful in the long term. So, interestingly, here, this is about making conscious choices. I'm not going to pass judgment on any of these examples that I've given you. These brands that have taken a leap of faith, they've made an attempt to become more inclusive, more diverse, more accessible. They've really gone for it in a big way. These are big consumer brands that are in the public domain. They're very much in the public face and they will appear as the case studies for right and wrong. And they've gone for it. They've taken the controversy on the chin. They've seen the upsides. They've seen the downsides. The question is, are you ready and willing to do this too? So, avoiding the common pitfalls is the first thing to be thinking about. So, diversity without depth, that is what we call tokenism. So, watch out for tokenism. You can use your favorite AI, or you can do some Google searching on this one to find out a little bit more about how to avoid the common pitfalls. But the first one, tokenism. Diversity without depth. You know how to overcome that now. Case studies, real world behavioral and activated experiences using your customers, who are those diverse customers that you're looking to approach or looking to target. You've probably already got some, so go talk to them, work with them, co-create. Another common pitfall is cultural appropriation. We see that all day, every day. And so you need to be going deep into that. Cultural appropriation is just the thing to avoid. You get found out. Well, it's so blindingly obvious, isn't it, when you see campaigns that are culturally appropriating the audiences they're targeting. It's so, so wrong. It just feels wrong. You know it's wrong objectively, but it feels wrong too. So avoid that. Do your research, find out how to. Lack of consultation. I've talked about these community leaders. I'm using that term in its broadest sense, but you might call them influencers. You might call them thought leaders, whoever it is, who are the ones who are kind of shaping the communities or the kind of the audiences that you are looking to target. It's those who you need to be consulting with. Find out what the really pertinent topics are, and then avoid falling into the traps that they may be opening up. Relying only on data and forgetting the real people is a really common pitfall because it takes effort. It's going to take you time to engage with these people. So don't just rely on the data. Get out there and start talking to people and start to get the real human face in there. And the big tip with all of this really is, if in doubt, ask. Don't assume. That is so, so key. So no matter how you're doing this, never make an assumption. Always be asking. That's clear. and create some kind of inclusive campaign planner. You may already have some solid procedures and systems in place for your campaign activity. But if you don't, then here's one that you can actually set up. So identify underrepresented groups in your current content. Map gaps in your voice, in your representation, and your accessibility. Create an inclusive content calendar, something that goes another step beyond, and build diverse creative teams or advisory panels using those thought leaders that we just talked about to be part of panels that are going to help you get it right from the get-go. And then measure, reflect, and refine. Know that you will never be at 100% because we are in this constantly fluid environment, this constantly fluid world, but with a good, strong intention and all of this backup information, doing things authentically with a good heart, doing your due diligence, doing your research enables you to be in that honest position. So you will get better and better and better at doing this. And you'll be part of a positive future of inclusive marketers. AI is going to play a role in inclusive content, but it has to be trained ethically. So whatever you're doing within AI, make sure you're briefing your AI agents as well as you're briefing the people in your teams. Brands that are going to embed inclusion will win on trust, they'll win on loyalty, and they'll win on cultural relevance. The future of marketing is inclusive, or it's irrelevant. That's an interesting one, isn't it? You know, when Mark Carney said the future of businesses, I'll paraphrase here, but he said the future of businesses is sustainability. And if you're not sustainable, you will not be in business in the future. Well, we're also seeing that inclusivity comes into that mix as well. So do this, or you will very, very quickly and very, very soon become irrelevant. So what are you now going to do differently? As a result of now, we've opened this box. You can't unknow what we've discussed here. So what will you now do differently? Build broader representation in your visuals, write more inclusive, accessible copy, test campaigns with diverse voices, or even start an internal conversation on inclusive culture. I'm going to set you a challenge now. Take one action this week to make your marketing more inclusive.